It was Christmas Eve in New York City, and the streets were glowing with fairy lights and laughter. Families filled the sidewalks with shopping bags and smiles, and carolers sang in the park, spreading warmth through the cold winter air. But high above all that noise, on the top floor of a glass tower, sat Daniel Cross alone. His penthouse overlooked the entire city, yet his eyes never moved from the fireplace in front of him. The flames danced gently, but there was no comfort in their glow. For Daniel, Christmas wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a reminder of what he had lost, and of how quiet his life had become since that one tragic night 10 years ago when everything changed. He had once been a man full of life, a husband, a father, someone who loved the sound of laughter in his home. But after the accident that took his wife and son, Daniel buried himself in work, building his company into a billion-dollar empire. People called him the machine CEO because he never smiled, never took holidays, and never allowed anyone close. He hosted charity events every December but never attended them himself. His assistant would send expensive gifts to orphanages and hospitals, but Daniel would always stay behind, staring at the empty chairs by his fireplace, pretending not to care. The clock struck 7, and the soft ticking echoed through the silent room. Outside, snow began to fall heavier, coating the city in white. Daniel sipped his coffee, though it had gone cold long ago. Every year he waited, he didn't know for what exactly. Maybe for the pain to fade, maybe for someone to walk through that door again. But no one ever did. Not since the day his son's laughter stopped echoing down the hall. He turned on the TV, hoping for distraction, but every channel showed families exchanging gifts, couples kissing under mistletoe, and children unwrapping presents by the tree. He turned it off again and sighed, leaning back in his chair, letting the loneliness sink in deeper. He thought about calling someone, maybe his assistant or one of the board members, but he knew it wouldn't help. They would only wish him a polite "Merry Christmas, sir," and go back to their own celebrations. No one truly knew Daniel anymore. They only knew the name, the power, the wealth. Not the man who sat awake every night replaying memories of laughter and warmth that had long faded away. Outside, the wind howled, brushing against the windows, and the snowstorm grew stronger. Daniel stood up, went to pour himself another cup of coffee, when suddenly, there was a knock. At first, he thought he imagined it. No one ever came to his penthouse, especially not unannounced. The second knock was louder, more desperate. Daniel froze, staring at the door. For a long moment, he debated ignoring it, but something inside urged him to check. When he opened the door, a rush of cold air hit his face, and there stood a young woman in a worn winter coat, her hair damp from the snow, holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been older than 6. The child's cheeks were red, her nose runny, and she clutched a small broken box in her tiny hands. "I'm so sorry to bother you," the woman said, her voice trembling from the cold. "Our car broke down just down the road. We've been walking for half an hour, and your building was the only one with lights on. Could we please use your phone to call for help?" Her eyes carried exhaustion, but also kindness. Daniel blinked, uncertain what to say. No one had spoken to him so sincerely in years. He nodded slowly and stepped aside. "Come in," he said quietly. The woman exhaled in relief and guided her daughter inside. Warmth rushed back into their bodies as they entered the luxurious living room. The little girl's eyes widened in amazement at the tall Christmas tree that stood near the window, decorated but untouched. "Wow," she whispered softly, her voice echoing in the stillness. Daniel handed them towels and gestured toward the fireplace. "You can sit here," he said awkwardly. "I'll get the phone." The woman smiled faintly, rubbing her daughter's cold hands. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate this. I'm Emma, and this is Lily." The girl looked up and smiled shyly. "Hi," she said in a small voice. Daniel handed her a mug of hot cocoa. He wasn't sure why he even had one prepared, but the moment she took a sip, she giggled softly. That tiny sound pierced through something in Daniel's chest, something buried deep. He hadn't heard a child laugh in 10 years. It made him look away for a moment, trying to compose himself. "You can use the phone," he said, pointing to the counter. Emma nodded and dialed, only to find there was no signal due to the storm. She sighed. "It's okay. Maybe it'll clear up soon." Daniel hesitated. "You can stay until it does," he said quietly. They sat by the fireplace, the flames reflecting in their eyes. Lily, curious, began walking around looking at the photos on the shelf. "Who's this?" she asked innocently, pointing at a framed picture of a woman and a young boy smiling with Daniel. He froze for a second before replying softly, "That's my family. They're not here anymore." Emma's eyes softened. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "I didn't mean to." "It's fine," Daniel interrupted, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Lily walked back and placed the broken box on the table. "It was supposed to be for my mommy," she said sadly. "But it broke when the car stopped." Daniel looked at the small torn gift box and asked, "What's inside?" Lily hesitated before opening it. Inside was a small handmade ornament, a heart cut from cardboard and painted with glitter. "I made it at school," she said proudly. "It says, 'Love you, Mommy.'" Emma smiled tearfully. "She worked so hard on it." Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. That simple, fragile heart carried more meaning than anything he owned. He excused himself for a moment and went to his office. When he returned, he had a small toolkit in hand. "May I?" he asked gently, taking the ornament. Lily nodded. Carefully, he glued the broken edges, fixed the ribbon, and placed it in her hands again. "Good as new," he said with a soft smile. Her face lit up instantly. "Thank you, mister," she squealed, hugging him tightly. Daniel froze, his eyes wide. No one had hugged him in years. Slowly, uncertainly, he patted her back. "You're welcome, kiddo." Emma watched silently, her eyes filling with emotion. Something about the way Daniel interacted with her daughter made her heart ache. A man who clearly knew loss, yet still found the kindness to help. For Daniel, that small moment of laughter and gratitude felt like the first heartbeat after years of silence. As the snow continued to fall outside, he found himself wondering, maybe this Christmas wouldn't be as empty as he thought. And for the first time in a decade, Daniel Cross felt a faint spark of warmth return to his soul. The storm outside grew harsher, but inside Daniel's penthouse, the fire painted a soft golden glow across the room. Emma sat wrapped in a blanket, holding the mug Daniel had given her while Lily played quietly near the fireplace. For the first time in years, Daniel's home didn't feel empty. He watched the little girl hum to herself as she arranged ornaments from his box, giggling every time one of them shimmered in the light. Her small laughter filled the silence he had come to know too well. It was strange, almost unreal, how easily warmth returned to a place that had forgotten what it meant to feel alive. Emma looked around, admiring the beautiful decorations. "You decorated all this yourself?" she asked softly. Daniel shook his head slightly. "My assistant's team did. I just told them to make it look festive." His voice carried a hint of sadness. Emma nodded, understanding without him saying more. "You must be very busy," she said, trying to start a conversation. Daniel smiled faintly. "Work keeps me distracted." She looked into the fire. "Distraction isn't the same as peace." Her words lingered in the air, cutting deeper than she realized. Daniel didn't respond. He simply watched the flames, lost in memories he had buried long ago. Lily climbed onto the couch beside him, holding her fixed ornament. "Do you like Christmas?" she asked innocently. Daniel hesitated. "I used to," he said finally. "When I was your age." Lily tilted her head. "What happened?" He swallowed hard. "I grew up," she frowned. "That's sad." Her simple honesty made him chuckle quietly, something he hadn't done in years. "Maybe you're right," he said softly. "Maybe it is," she grinned. "Then you should be a kid again. Just for tonight." The way she said it, so pure, so full of hope, made Daniel's chest ache. "Maybe I'll try," he said. The power suddenly flickered and went out, leaving the room dim except for the fire's glow. Emma gasped softly, but Lily clapped her hands. "It's like a camping night," she said with excitement. Daniel smiled, walking over to light a few candles. "You have quite the imagination," he said warmly. "Mom says imagination keeps your heart happy," Lily replied proudly. Emma chuckled. "She says a lot of things," she teased, brushing her daughter's hair gently. The storm howled outside, but inside, laughter replaced the wind's cry. Daniel sat down again, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. After a while, Lily began to grow sleepy. Emma tried to apologize for staying too long. "I didn't mean to keep you," she said softly. "Once the storm settles, we'll leave." But Daniel stopped her. It's dangerous out there. You both should stay tonight. I have plenty of space. Emma hesitated. We don't want to impose. You're not, he said firmly but kindly. It's Christmas Eve. No one should be out in this weather. She looked at him for a long moment before nodding. Thank you, Mr. Cross. Daniel, he corrected gently. Just Daniel. Lily fell asleep on the couch, clutching her ornament. Daniel placed a blanket over her and smiled faintly. She reminds me of my son, he said quietly. Emma looked up. You have a son? His gaze fell on the family photo by the mantel. Had, he said, his voice breaking slightly. He and my wife died in a car accident. 10 years ago on Christmas Eve. Emma's heart sank. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Since then, I stopped celebrating. I thought maybe if I worked enough, I'd stop feeling the pain, but it never really goes away. His voice was fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Emma moved closer, her tone gentle. You can't erase pain, Daniel. You just have to let something good grow around it. Her words settled in his heart like snowflakes, soft, but impossible to ignore. You're wise, he said softly. She smiled. Life doesn't give you much choice. They sat in silence, the fire crackling between them. Daniel looked at her, really looked, and saw not just a tired woman, but strength. She was someone who carried her burdens with grace. You and your daughter, where were you heading tonight? He asked. Emma sighed. Nowhere special. I was driving home from my second job. I promised Lily we'd make it before midnight to open her little gift. But the car broke down halfway. Daniel frowned. You work 2 jobs? She nodded. Sometimes 3. It's not easy being a single mom. Her tone wasn't self-pitying, just honest. Daniel felt something twist inside him, a mix of guilt and admiration. You're doing an incredible job, he said sincerely. She smiled softly. Thank you. But tonight, I think you needed her more than she needed me. He looked toward Lily, sleeping peacefully with a faint smile on her face, and realized Emma was right. That child's laughter had done more for his heart than years of therapy ever could. Hours passed and the storm finally began to quiet down. The world outside was buried under a blanket of snow. Emma glanced toward the window. It's so beautiful, she whispered. Daniel nodded. It is. For the first time in 10 years, he meant it. He walked over to the tree and picked up a small box wrapped in silver paper. I was supposed to give this to charity, he said, holding it out to Emma. But I think it belongs to Lily. Emma opened it carefully. It was a delicate snow globe with a tiny house and a family inside. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. She'll love it, she said. When morning came, the first rays of sunlight spilled across the room. Lily woke up, rubbing her eyes, and gasped. It's Christmas morning, she exclaimed. Daniel smiled and handed her the snow globe. Merry Christmas, Lily. Her face lit up brighter than the tree. Thank you, Mr. Daniel, she said, hugging him tight. Emma stood nearby, watching the moment with quiet emotion. Daniel felt something inside him heal, a wound that had been open for too long. After breakfast, Emma prepared to leave, though Daniel secretly wished they could stay longer. Thank you for everything, she said sincerely. For helping us, for the warmth, and for the kindness. Daniel shook his head. No, Emma, thank you for reminding me what Christmas really means. She smiled. Maybe we'll see you again next year, Lily added eagerly. Daniel knelt beside her. You can count on it, he said with a soft laugh. As they left, Daniel stood by the window, watching their footprints disappear into the snow. The city was alive again, but this time so was he. He turned toward the fireplace where the faint laughter of a little girl still echoed in his heart. For the first time in 10 years, Daniel Cross didn't feel alone, because 2 strangers had knocked on his door and brought Christmas back to life.